imports. Germany and China reached a strategic cooperation. As a pillar country of the European Union, Germany is deeply affected by it. The Western countries brain sanctions Russia. The result of winter approaching, Germany only found itself in an energy crisis, cannot extricate themselves. Not only the voice of domestic dissatisfaction is growing, even the United States, Norway and other countries that can provide energy, but also revealed their true colors. After Russia was sanctioned, the United States jumped to become a major exporter of natural gas, exporting a shipload of natural gas netted $150 million. The price is more than 4 times higher than the gas provided by Russia, which makes the EU countries have to suffer. Take Germany as an example. Germany's current electricity is about 5 yuan per unit when converted into RMB. The price has increased 10 times than before. The high price of energy provided by the United States, so that the cost of living in Germany has also risen sharply, which made German Prime Minister Scholz sat down. The United States is to provide energy, but the price far exceeds the market standard. The German people's cost of living increased. The German government had to subsidize 65 billion euros to stabilize electricity prices. But the effect is not obvious. Energy prices are getting higher and higher, so that Germany is facing a difficult situation of energy cuts. Many German companies have shifted their attention, ready to leave Germany to other countries. China is also one of the choices of German companies. First of all, China has a huge market, and energy imports are more diversified and controllable in terms of cost. Secondly, as China's comprehensive national power continues to rise, China's influence in the international energy market will also become greater and greater. Recently revealed by the media, Germany is concerned about China's energy security. According to reports, on the 14th of local time, German Chancellor Scholz and Mongolian Prime Minister Ayun Erdogan had an exchange, and the focus of the topic fell on energy cooperation, cultural exchanges, etc. But the German media reports did not focus on cultural exchanges, but showed extraordinary concern for Siberia too, resulting in China unexpectedly it became the focus of attention. Ayun Erdogan's answer to the media is also intriguing, saying that the Siberia 2 project is still in the study stage and that China and Russia have not yet agreed on the cost of the pipeline, so the exact timing of the construction cannot be determined yet. Although Ayun Erdogan's answer was not clear, the German side clearly pointed out that the construction of Siberia 2 between Russia and China will start in 2024, and the value of Siberia 2 is enough to replace Nord Stream 2. According to the data released by the Russian side, Nord Stream 2 can supply up to 55 billion cubic meters per year, while Siberia 2, after completion, can supply 50 billion cubic meters per year, but the specific supply requirements or depends on China's intention. After the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Germany has paid a huge price due to the decoupling from Russia's energy. In such a context, Germany should maintain good relations with China and expand their cooperation in order to stabilize the economic situation in Germany. However, some German politicians, who have a strange brain, are proposing to decouple from China because they have learned a lesson from the decoupling with Russia. This is a ridiculous argument. If they have really learned a lesson, they should reflect on it and ensure the stability of relations with China, instead of shouting about decoupling. The German newspaper Handelsblatt commented that German big companies have been very dependent on China, and they are not willing to withdraw from China, but insist on doing business in China, and continue to expand it. At the same time, the big German companies not only do not accept the pressure of German officials, but also reverse the pressure on officials to defend their interests in the Chinese market. One executive of a German company said that if they want to be the best in their industry, they must be in China. German companies have learned how to get along with China over a long period of time with China. What is happening is that the interests of German companies are in China, and German companies themselves will deal with China without German politicians telling them what to do. And when German politicians go off the rails, German companies will step in as middlemen and act as a lubricant for Sino-German relations. If only 1 or 2 German companies do so, it should not be able to influence the German official foreign policy, but almost all large German companies insist on cooperating with China and strongly oppose to decoupling from China. The German official will have to weigh up. As a result, the Handelsblatt issued a lament that Germany is far more dependent on China than on Russia. The most intuitive aspect of the economic cooperation between China and Germany is not what some German politicians say, but what German companies do. If the so-called decoupling of German politicians from China could be achieved, German companies would not keep investing in China. In the first 8 months of this year, German companies invested 30% more in China than in the same period last year. And in the first half of the year alone, German investments in China reached a record volume of 10 billion euros. After entering the second half of the year, German companies still continue to invest in the Chinese market. Only then did Germany's Volkswagen announce an investment worth 2.4 billion euros to set up a joint venture with Chinese smart computing platform provider Horizon. Then came the news that Germany's BMW is preparing to move its mini electric car production line from the UK to China. The facts show that German companies are still deeply engaged in the Chinese market and are not shying away from the rhetoric of some German politicians. It shows that German companies know what they need and that they don't need to be beholden to the United States, as politicians are. Rather, they are determined to make decisions in their own interests. The German enterprises practice, in line with the laws of the market, but also in line with the thinking of businessmen, which is normal and beneficial to both China and Germany. Cooperation, and the so-called dependence on the so-called non-dependence has nothing to do with the market decision, and the nature of businessmen for profit is also destined to act in accordance with the laws of the market. At present, Europe is suffering from an unprecedented energy crisis, shortage of gasoline and power supply, leading to the residents of the European region crazy purchase of Chinese electric blankets, and even France, which has always boasted that it is the strongest country in Europe, has also appeared in the farce of not allowing refueling if the fuel tank is not empty enough. All these phenomena show that the wrong foreign policy has led to a great impact on the social stability of Europe. If it continues to follow the US and implement the wrong line towards China, the prosperity of Europe, especially Germany, will suffer greatly. According to him, the EU must establish a broad, multilateral and robust trade relationship, which needs to be established with many countries including China. Earlier, EU Trade Commissioner Dombrovskis has said that what the world needs today is not isolation and protectionism, and that the EU and China are deeply integrated economies and China is an important growth market for the EU. From the standpoint of Germany and the EU, the economic and trade cooperation between China and the EU will not be suppressed by the hegemony of the US, but will be deeper under pressure. This reflects the sanity and calmness of the German government, knowing that Germany's trade with China is very close and German machinery manufacturers are quite dependent on foreign countries. Once Germany and China are decoupled, it is bound to cause damage to itself. In addition, in the epidemic and energy crisis, Germany, led by the EU public, need more. In addition, under the epidemic and energy crisis, the people of the EU, led by Germany, need good quality and cheap Chinese goods to maintain their lives, and it is obvious that the decoupling from China is not in the long-term interests of Germany and the EU. Of course, German Chancellor Scholz issued the above appeal, in fact, in reminding the United States, do not try to cut off the road of trade between China and the EU. The EU still has a bottom line. Although the EU can follow the US sanctions to encircle Russia and support Ukraine, the EU will never cut off cooperation with China. For the EU, I am afraid that the one who can really help itself at the moment is not the United States, but China, knowing that after the Nord Stream pipeline was bombed, the United States quickly provided high-priced natural gas to EU countries, including Germany, a move that caused dissatisfaction in Germany and many other countries. Although the EU is considered an ally by the United States, but in front of the interests, the United States directly to the EU as a fat sheep slaughter. Unlike the US, China seeks cooperative development, actively maintains China-EU trade and calls for peaceful development. China's advocacy is deeply popular and certainly satisfies the EU's interest demands. Over the years, the United States has improperly provoked trade wars, engaged in trade protectionism and tried to maintain its unipolar pattern for its own interests and to maintain hegemony. But as anyone knows, the epidemic has changed the world order and the geopolitical power contrast. China is now not only the mainstay of the world economy, but also the survival hope of Europe, and only by riding the Chinese economic express can it truly maintain its development. And following the United States, countries are not only unable to profit, but also unable to preserve the fruits of development. The strategic goal of the US to take advantage of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and frantically suck the blood of Europe to relieve its own pressure and contradictions has become increasingly clear.